If you make even one of these mistakes tonight, you could put your heart under dangerous strain before morning. And the truth is, most people over 55 make several of them without ever realizing it. I know that sounds unsettling, but stay with me for a few minutes because what you're about to hear could genuinely protect your life. Tonight, I'm going to walk you through the silent mistakes that happen while you sleep. These aren't the kinds of mistakes that cause pain or set off alarms. They don't wake you up. They don't come with warnings, and in many cases, they don't offer second chances. More importantly, I'll show you what you can change before you go to bed tonight to lower that risk. Let me start with a case that still sticks with me. A man in his late 60s came in for what he believed was a routine visit. He was still driving, still working part-time, still living independently. He told me he felt reasonably healthy for his age. His blood pressure was a little high, but not alarming. His cholesterol was borderline, but manageable. When I asked about his sleep, he shrugged and said, "Not great. But who sleeps well at this age?" That one sentence is more dangerous than most people realize. 2 weeks later, his wife found him unresponsive in bed. No warning signs, no chest pain, no emergency call in the night, just silence. When I later spoke with her, she told me something I've heard far too often. He said he was just tired. We thought it was normal. Here's the truth almost no one explains clearly enough. For many people over 55, the heart is not safest while you sleep. In fact, nighttime is often when the heart experiences its most dangerous kind of stress. Not the loud stress of exercise or emotional shock, but the quiet stress that builds while you're unconscious. Blood pressure shifts, breathing patterns change, oxygen levels dip, fluid redistributes in the body, and small, seemingly harmless habits can suddenly become dangerous when they combine in the dark. I'm Dr. Matthew Brooks, and for decades I've studied what the heart goes through during sleep. I've reviewed countless cases of nighttime cardiac events, sudden death during sleep, and dangerous rhythm disturbances that show up only after midnight. And what I can tell you with certainty is this: most of these events are not random. They come from preventable mistakes that people don't even realize they're making. The first mistake is incredibly common, and almost everyone thinks they're doing the right thing. The first mistake is going to bed dehydrated. Most people, especially seniors, deliberately stop drinking water in the evening because they don't want to wake up to use the bathroom. It sounds logical, it feels practical, but inside your body, something very different is happening. When you're dehydrated, your blood becomes thicker. Thicker blood is harder for the heart to pump. Circulation slows. Blood pressure control becomes unstable and the risk of clots rises. During the night, especially in the early morning hours, your heart rate naturally slows and your blood pressure fluctuates. That combination, thicker blood and slower circulation, is exactly when heart attacks and strokes are most likely to occur. I've had many patients tell me they avoid fluids after dinner because they believe they're protecting their sleep. What they don't realize is they may be adding extra strain to their heart instead. This doesn't mean chugging water right before bed, but completely avoiding fluids for hours before sleep can be a quiet danger. Even a small amount, half a glass of water earlier in the evening, can help keep circulation smoother during the most vulnerable hours of the night. But hydration alone won't protect you if you're making the second mistake, which has to do with how you position your body while you sleep. The second mistake is sleeping completely flat on your back when your heart can't tolerate it anymore. Lying flat feels natural. It feels comfortable. Many people have slept that way for decades without a second thought. But as we age, the heart's ability to handle fluid shifts changes. When you lie flat, fluid redistributes toward the chest. This raises pressure in the lungs and makes it harder for the heart to work efficiently. For people with high blood pressure, heart weakness, or even mild undiagnosed strain, this can be dangerous. Let me ask you something important. Have you ever woken up at night feeling short of breath, or felt like you needed to sit up to breathe more comfortably? That's not anxiety. It's not just aging. It's often a sign your heart is struggling under nighttime conditions. I once had a patient who slept with several pillows stacked under her head. When I asked her why, she said she didn't really know. It was just the only way she felt comfortable. Her body had figured out something her conscious mind hadn't. Elevating her upper body reduced the workload on her heart. A gentle incline, just a few inches, can significantly reduce nighttime cardiac stress. You don't need to sleep sitting upright. You don't need expensive equipment. Small adjustments can make a meaningful difference. But even hydration and posture won't fully protect you if you're making the third mistake, which is one of the most overlooked and dangerous of all. The third mistake is taking the wrong kind of help before bed. Sleep aids are extremely common. Over-the-counter products, nighttime pain relievers, melatonin, and prescription sleep medications are often seen as harmless, but many can interfere with breathing, lower oxygen levels, or disrupt heart rhythm, especially in older adults. I've reviewed numerous cases where someone passed away peacefully in their sleep, and when we looked closer, a nighttime medication played a role. The most dangerous part is that these medications rarely cause pain or obvious distress. You don't wake up gasping. Your heart rhythm simply becomes unstable, or oxygen drops just enough to trigger a fatal event. People often say, I only take it when I really need sleep. But sometimes once is enough. This risk rises dramatically if you snore loudly, stop breathing during sleep, or wake up unrefreshed even after hours in bed. That's why the most important question about nighttime medication isn't just whether it helps you sleep, but whether it's safe for your heart while you sleep. If that answer isn't clear, the uncertainty itself is a warning. But medications aren't the only thing people overlook at night. The fourth mistake involves symptoms many people have learned to ignore. The fourth mistake is brushing off nighttime symptoms you've normalized. Humans adapt easily. We normalize discomfort. We tell ourselves poor sleep, loud snoring, night sweats, or waking exhausted are just part of getting older. But your heart doesn't adapt the way your mindset does. It tolerates stress until it can't anymore. Loud snoring, gasping during sleep, waking with a racing heart, morning headaches, or extreme fatigue aren't just sleep issues. They are signs of nighttime cardiac strain. One of the most dangerous conditions connected to this is sleep apnea. Sleep apnea causes repeated drops in oxygen throughout the night, forcing the heart to work harder in low oxygen conditions. Over time, this greatly increases the risk of heart attack, stroke, and sudden death during sleep. What makes it so dangerous is that many people don't know they have it. Their partner notices the breathing pauses, but the person sleeping has no memory of it. I once asked a patient why he never mentioned his snoring. He laughed and said his wife complained about it all the time, but he assumed it was harmless. It wasn't. Once treated, his heart rhythm stabilized and his energy returned. Ignoring nighttime symptoms doesn't make you tough. It makes you exposed. And all of this brings us to the final mistake, the one that often determines whether all the others become dangerous. But before we go there, understand this clearly. None of these mistakes feel threatening in the moment. That's why they're so dangerous. They don't hurt. They don't scare you. They simply set the stage, and what comes next is the mistake almost everyone underestimates. Now we come to the final mistake, and in many ways, it's the one that decides whether the others quietly turn dangerous or remain manageable. Because even if you hydrate properly, adjust your sleeping position, avoid risky medications, and recognize warning signs, there is still one factor that can undo all of that. The fifth mistake is going to sleep with a stressed heart. Most people think of stress as something that belongs to daytime. Work, finances, family problems, bad news, unresolved arguments. But what very few people understand is that the way you enter sleep shapes how your heart behaves for the next 6 to 8 hours. If you go to bed tense, anxious, angry, or mentally overstimulated, your nervous system doesn't simply shut off when you close your eyes. Stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline stay elevated. Your heart rate remains higher than it should. Your blood pressure doesn't dip the way it's designed to at night, and your heart never truly enters its recovery phase. I've seen this pattern again and again. Patients with acceptable test results during the day, but dangerous rhythm disturbances that appear only at night. When we look deeper, the common thread is often unresolved stress carried straight into sleep. One patient once told me, "Nighttime is when my thoughts get loud." And that was exactly when his heart was under the greatest strain. Your heart is built to slow down at night. That's when repair happens. That's when inflammation settles. That's when the nervous system shifts into recovery mode. But it can't do that if your mind is still in fight or flight mode, scrolling alarming news, replaying worries, or lying in bed tense and alert. From the heart's perspective, stress doesn't care whether it comes from a physical threat or a mental one. The body responds the same way. This is why heart attacks, strokes, and fatal rhythm disturbances so often strike in the early morning hours. The heart has been working all night without real rest. Eventually, something gives. And the tragedy is that most people never connect what they felt before bed with what happened while they slept. Here's the good news, and this matters. This mistake is one of the easiest to fix. It doesn't require medication, equipment, or dramatic lifestyle changes. It requires one decision. You must build a buffer between your day and your sleep. Think of it as giving your heart permission to stand down. Even a simple wind-down routine, just 15 to 20 minutes, can dramatically change how your heart behaves overnight. No arguments, no heavy conversations, no doom scrolling, no stimulating television. Dim the lights, slow your breathing, sit quietly, stretch gently, pray, meditate, or simply breathe slow and deep. When your breathing slows, your heart follows. That's not philosophy. That's physiology. I often tell patients to imagine speaking directly to their heart before sleep, saying, "You're safe now. You can rest." It may sound simple, even silly, but the nervous system responds to signals, not logic. Calm signals create calm responses. Now let's zoom out and pull everything together. None of the 5 mistakes we've covered are dramatic on their own. That's exactly what makes them dangerous. They don't feel urgent. They feel like routine. Skipping water, sleeping flat, taking a pill to rest, ignoring snoring, carrying stress into bed. Each one quietly increases nighttime cardiac strain. And when several of them stack together, night after night, year after year, the heart eventually reaches a breaking point. People who suffer sudden events in their sleep are rarely reckless. They aren't ignoring obvious danger signs. They're doing what they've always done. That's why awareness matters so much. Once you understand what raises your heart's risk at night, you can make small changes that have outsized effects. So here's what I want you to do tonight. Drink a small amount of water earlier in the evening, enough to support circulation without disrupting sleep. Adjust your sleeping position so your upper body is slightly elevated, especially if you've ever felt short of breath at night. Question any medication or supplement you take to help you sleep, and ask whether it's truly safe for your heart. Pay attention to nighttime symptoms you've been dismissing as normal. And finally, give your heart a calm transition into sleep. These aren't extreme measures, they're gentle corrections, and they matter because sleep isn't just rest. Sleep is a test. Every night your heart is tested under lower oxygen, slower circulation, and shifting pressures. The goal is not to make that test harder than it needs to be. I want to leave you with one final thought. When something goes wrong during sleep, there is no warning bell. There is no chance to push through. That's why prevention matters far more than reaction. The heart doesn't announce when it has had enough. It simply stops. But the opposite is also true. When you support your heart properly at night, it becomes more resilient during the day. Better sleep stabilizes blood pressure, improves rhythm, lowers inflammation, and sharpens mental clarity. Nighttime care isn't separate from heart health, it's the foundation of it. Now I want to ask you something important. Which one of these mistakes sounds uncomfortably familiar to you? Not the one that scares you most, but the one you recognize in your own routine? Write it in the comments. And if you stayed with me all the way to the end of this video, please type "I watched till the end" in the comments. I read those messages, and they help me know this information is reaching people who truly care about their health. If this video changed how you think about sleep tonight, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future videos like this. Everything here is about protecting your heart, your independence, and your life. Take care of your heart.